Howdy.
Hey everyone, this is Wrestle Recap. And if you didn't know that, why did you click on this? I'm Justin Tate.
I'm Michelle Tate.
And we are brother and sister, and we talk about wrestling throughout the decades, pay-per-view by pay-per-view, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we have a real good time doing it, but every week we got to get into the kind of current wrestling news because we love giving our opinions, right, Justin?
Well, I'm kind of afraid to anymore, but you know.
Yeah, that's true. Well, what do we got? What do we got on the docket?
Well, when this episode comes out, this will be kind of old news, but we should at least mention a lot of WWE releases in the past couple weeks. What was the most shocking one to you?
Braun Strowman, 100%, because
Really?
you know, they let him go. And then I guess that was Vince that let him go. And then Triple H brought him back. And I was like, oh, good. And like, he's been on TV and like, I feel like he's done, not jobbing, but like he's thrown himself out there to do anything he needs to do for the company's sake. And then they just release him again. And I was just kind of surprised.
Yeah. Shayna Baszler was the one that made me go, huh.
Yeah.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah. Why do you say that?
Well, I mean, she's so unique in the WWE women's division, and she's been there so long. I mean, she was a huge part of NXT. And then when she got called up to the main roster years and years ago, it just seemed like she always brought something unique, but they never seemed to really want to go all the way with her. So I'm sure she'll still do great things. So, but yeah, that's never fun to hear about all that. Also never fun to hear about a former wrestler getting arrested for some really crappy stuff. Duke the Dumpster Droese, who many of you remember as the garbage man of the WWF back in the mid-90s.
How fitting that his name is the Dumpster with his charges.
Right, yeah. Arrested this past week for trying to purchase child
photos.
Things, you shouldn't download having to do with that. Now, he had previously been in prison for, I believe it was distribution of drugs. Oh. And so Duke the Dumpster Droese probably not going into the Hall of Fame anytime soon.
He'll be in the prison Hall of Fame. Be like, oh my God, he can be next to Diddy and, Weinstein and all that.
There you go. There you go. Well, let's move on to a happier time, 1991.
Well, Justin, before we do that, we have to take a step in our time machine.
Yeah, baby. All right, let's get into today's show. It's WCW Great American Bash 1991. Took place on July 14th, 1991 from the Baltimore Arena in Baltimore, Maryland. If that sounds familiar, it should. It's now known as the CFG Bank Arena, but here on our show, it's the same arena that held the Great American Bash in 1988, 1989, and 1990. So familiar arena to us. Attendance for the show around 7,000, and our commentators are Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone. Interesting team. And the number one song in the U.S. on July 14th, 1991. Play it, Michelle. That's right. It's Unbelievable by EMF.
You know what that song hit. Yeah, I was about to say, I don't think they ever did anything else, but this is a song I freaking know, finally. So that's good. But it always reminds me of the water ski show at SeaWorld San Antonio, because they had the same show for 10, 15 years, because there's like a lake in SeaWorld. And that's what it always reminds me of, because the hot girl on the beach for the summer would get that for her walkout song. So
that makes sense. You know what? My wife and I go to SeaWorld a lot, and we always walk by that big lake, and I always think, we never see the ski show going on. So maybe we'll catch it at the right time at some point.
Well, I know back in the day, they only did it during the summer, like the peak months, like May through August. But I don't know, because lately, and you people, for everything I know about wrestling, I know 10 times more about SeaWorld. I was the SeaWorld kid. I kind of wonder if they're not bringing it back, because they've really kind of aimed SeaWorld less performance, more education. Like they're trying to make it not as fun, or like, I don't know. all the shows are very educational now and not performance quality type stuff. So I don't know if that show's even coming back, but why am I here talking about this? I'm not on my SeaWorld podcast. What are we doing? What are we doing here? Let's get into the background of this show. How about that?
Let's do it.
All right. Well, this is the 7th Great American Bash event, but it was the first held by WCW as a standalone company. So there were multiple changes to the final 2 matches on the show, for reasons we'll get into a little bit later. If it were me, I probably would have just scrapped the whole show, but we'll get
spoiler alert.
I mean, am I wrong? But okay. So there was one dark match before the show where the Junkyard Dog defeated Black Bart. And I'm like, what's up with the push for Black Bart lately? I mean, he's around. It's weird. So yeah, but before we get into it, we need some
Wrestle Stats.
Wrestle Stats we have. That's right. Found at WrestleStats.com for modern day wrestling. The average age of wrestlers on this pay-per-view, 31 years old. The youngest being Dustin Rhodes at 22. And the oldest is a tie between 2 guys, Black Blood and Jimmy Garvin, both 38 years old. Kind of crazy because most of the time the oldest on a show is in their 40s. Here, the oldest is only 38. So
I feel old all of a sudden.
Now let's get into who's still around today. Now on this show, there are 30 wrestlers who competed. Out of those, 22 are still alive today. That's about 73%. But here's the big number. Okay, the one we all wait for. Will it be happy music? Will it be sad music? Out of the 264 wrestlers we have watched on Wrestle Recap so far, 152 of them are still alive today for a percentage of 57.58%, which is up from last week.
We're still standing. We
All
got happy
right,
music.
finally. Finally, no more Undertaker music. Well, tell us what happens once we get this show on our screen.
Yes, we open up that Peacock machine, and our opening segment starts from the outside the arena. It's, you know how they're doing those shots recently, like in WWE and AEW, where you kind of follow the camera a long way to inside the arena. Well,
Right.
they definitely took this from Great American Bash 1991 because our opening segment starts from the outside, and we're kind of just seeing the cameraman's point of view, his perspective as he walks through the parking lot up to the arena and walks through the doors. And we enter a sea of very excited 90s nerds. Some people look really excited. Some people look really confused.
This looks like you could take this shot today, like the mix of people there.
Yeah, and like because so many like 90s trends and like fashions are coming back, it looks
Right.
like the kids of today. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I feel old again. Second time on today's podcast. We're not even there yet. Okay. So we, aka the camera guy, but I'm just gonna say we stop at the ticket booth and say 2 tickets, please. And I guess the tickets are free because he just like gets handed 2 tickets. He doesn't even know where he's sitting. He's just cool with it. But
They should have had him give a credit card and then run it through that big thing that used to go. Yeah.
And he could have said, wow, it worked, like in Home Alone 2. That would have been great. So we keep walking past the guy who's like selling programs. And then the ticket taker man, he's very friendly. And he says, come on in as he tears our ticket. We enter the arena and man, the crowd is going wild. Like the arena is very well lit, looks very full. It was a good intro look, in my opinion.
They
But
were all actually there for the rodeo, but you know, they just kind of hid that. No, I'm kidding.
what kind of rodeos in Baltimore? That's a weird rodeo. When you were like, this arena sounds familiar, I was like, how many arenas are there in Maryland? Like, come on.
It's a tiny state.
It is. But right away, we have the scaffold built up around the ring, which you know me, I'm not a fan of. But we'll see. We'll see. But we get some crowd shots of some more nerds and even more grandparent nerds. There's like these nerdy old people. And I say nerds in the most loving way because I too am a dork. So it's fine.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And we also get a shot of a fan with a sign that says, "We want Flair." And that man will be sorely disappointed.
Yeah, that's not all that happens, but we'll talk about it later.
Yeah.
But we go right into our first match. We don't even see Tony and JR. Like it just goes straight to the first match.
No,
So let's
we're
talk about it.
getting off to a hot start, and it is a weird one. It is a scaffold flag tag team match.
I'm just laughing
That's
at the
right.
title of this. Like,
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
ridiculous.
Our participants here are the team of Bobby Eaton, Beautiful Bobby, and PN News against Terrence Taylor and Steve Austin with
What?
Lady Blossom. Check that out. So let's get into this. Of course, we've seen Bobby Eaton before. We've seen Terrence Taylor, but there's two guys we haven't seen. PN News, which if you don't know who he is, just think of a large, obese man in spandex who is dressed as a rapper and tries to rap often. And it's as great as it sounds.
My face right now, that says
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Basically, PN News, born July 9th, 1966, still alive today at the age of 58. On this pay-per-view, he's 25. And the final pay-per-view we're going to see him on, believe it or not, ECW November to Remember 1999.
Random.
Yeah. Real name Paul New, which I guess that's where you get the PN News. Now, he would be released from WCW less than a year after this in March of 1992. But he spent the following years wrestling in Europe before making his debut in ECW in 1999. So that's PN News. But let's talk about this young whippersnapper. I don't know whatever happened to him, named Steve Austin.
What?
Born December 18th, 1964. Right now, he's 60 years old. But on this pay-per-view, he was 26. And the final pay-per-view we'll see him wrestle on just a few years ago, WrestleMania 38, which was a lot of fun. The aftermath of that match kind of sucked, but that's okay. Born as Steve Anderson before legally changing his name to Steve Williams and then to Steve Austin. So that's his real name now, Steve Austin. He actually played football for the University of North Texas, where I graduated from, while training to be a wrestler at the Sportatorium in Dallas. If you remember Chris Adams, who we've seen on a couple of pay-per-views, he trained Stone Cold Steve Austin. Well, just Steve Austin here, stunning Steve Austin. Mm-hmm. And Steve Austin is actually a two-time inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame. How about that? Once by himself in 2009, and then earlier this year for his match with Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13. Are you ready for this match?
Sure.
Yeah. It's like, are you ready for your flu shot? Sure.
Right, exactly.
Now, this was, okay, so we've seen scaffold matches, right? Where the point was to throw somebody off of the scaffold. That's how you win. And this was originally supposed to be that. But the capture the flag stipulation, where a flag was on each end of the scaffold, that was added the day of the show because none of the wrestlers wanted to take a fall from the scaffold. So they said, well, we'll put a flag on each end, and one of you grab the flag and take it back to your side, and that'll be an exciting opener for this big pay-per-view.
This is so goofy. Like when they said that, I was like, was this supposed to be a dark match? And it just it reminds me of field day. That's what it reminds me of, field day at school. But anyway, I got to talk about the gear. But I know this PN News guy's gimmick is lame, but his gear is not, because he's literally wearing a Saved by the Bell like TV show as a singlet, and I'm pretty sure he bought it at the Max.
Yes.
Justin, did you realize? So today I went to Chili's for lunch because I live in West Texas and we don't have options, and they had a nostalgia 90s margarita of the month. And did you realize I sent you a picture of it? I was like, this is so cool. Did you realize who that was in the picture? Yes,
that was Kelly Kapowski.
Well, I said she was Valerie Malone because of 90210, but Tiffany Amber Thiessen is now the face of the margarita of the month at Chili's, and all is right in the world. And apparently, found this out later, you get collectible 90s straws. So I need to go there and order like 6 margaritas so I can get all the straws.
Well, and Jesse Spano is actually the face of caffeine pills. Who knew, right?
I'm so excited. I wish I had that as a sound cue. Dang it.
You know that they weren't talking about caffeine pills.
Oh, no, absolutely not. It was cocaine. But Steve Austin, he's got this long, flowing blonde hair, and it is so strange looking.
It is. It is. I don't know where my hairbrush is. Damn, what the hell?
Like, he would get so much beer in his hair now. But did you know how Stone Cold Steve Austin ended up with his successful name and gimmick?
I've heard this. It's interesting.
Okay, yeah. So his wife, she's English, named Jeannie, told him to drink his tea before it got stone cold. And I'm like, that's cute. Yeah.
There it is. And his English wife, Jeannie, is seen here as their manager, Lady Blossom.
Okay,
That's
I thought
her.
that was her, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But like, can you imagine Steve Austin like drinking hot tea? Like that's like an oxymoron. Like what? Like this little cup, and he's all, "Ugh," you know?
About 2 drops of sugar in this son of a bitch, huh?
That's funny.
Yeah.
But this is an interesting look for a match that I'm not sure we've seen so far. So it's like the fluorescent lights are on full blast and it is bright as hell. And it really looks like a circus act, like not even trying to be funny. It looks
Yeah.
like you're at a circus, an indoor circus, and it's just lit up that way. It's interesting.
Yeah, no, it is. And there's also a new ring apron, which I thought was kind of cool. It's like bright red with the Great American Bash logo right in the middle. I thought they looked pretty sharp.
Yeah, like on a production level, I think they're stepping it up.
Oh, yeah.
They just have talent issues right now, or
Yeah.
but
Or idea issues.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this match, Justin, it killed me because the whole scaffold thing is shaking, and like
Yes.
this match right here, this scaffold, like this is my Damien, Justin. Like my heart was racing just watching it, and like I hate heights. Like, oh, I hate these matches.
Well, and I feel like this scaffold is taller than what we've seen in the past. But I love how Bobby Eaton has done so many of these now that he just like hauls ass up there like it's no big deal. Like, come on, boys, it's not that bad.
Well, he didn't want to take the bump either, apparently, hence the
It's
flag.
true.
But
That's true.
Terry Taylor is kind of the first to walk out onto the scaffold, like toward the other team. And like he gets like 3 feet out and then he just lays down and then slowly scoots backward back to his like platform. And I'm like, that would be me because my knees would crumble. I'd be afraid of falling. So I just lay down and scoop myself. But piggybacking off of that thought, Steve Austin, he walks out and he quote trips and falls, and it literally made me nauseous. Like I know it was planned, but
it's like the wheel of death at the circus, that thing with 2 circles on the end and it goes around and around. I can't watch that act. Like
those dudes trip on purpose too. Did you know that?
Yeah.
And they'll jump rope on it. Oh, this whole thing is terrible. Who thought that like being on high things is entertaining?
Not me.
God, I hate it. Well, JR, he does mention that PN News is 403 pounds. And for the first time, I actually believe that weight is accurate.
Yeah, he's a
big
old boy.
And it's not like a earthquake big boy or like an Otis big boy. Like he's just kind of
he's kind of compact.
A circle. Yeah, he's like that's a good word. Compact. But the weirdest part of this wrestling match is that there's no wrestling in this match. Like it's just more of a tightrope act with big boys.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, like the whole idea was kind of dumb, right? Like we've seen the scaffold matches before, and there's not much action to them, but they just can't do much up there except like tees falling off of the scaffold. So everything in between those spots is just like punch, kick, punch, kick. There's not much there. Finally, Bobby Eaton gets over to the other side, captures the flag, takes it back to his side for the win. And beautiful Bobby and PN News win the match in 7 minutes, 32 seconds. Anything else to say here?
There were no even punches or kicks. They literally just walked back and forth for 7 minutes and 32 seconds. And then there was a flag. But no, other than that, I have nothing to say.
Well, after the match, everybody just kind of like climbs back down. Yeah. But then they crawl back up. And then Lady Blossom hands something to Steve Austin, who sprays it in Bobby and PN News' eyes, like hairspray or something. And then they crawl back down, and then they brawl with the bad guys a bit in the ring while the stagehands start to take apart the scaffolding. Like, cut your losses. Like, just get out.
I feel like having to put up the scaffolding and bring it down really, really fast, like the pain in the butt that it was did not pay off with the reward, you know?
Yeah.
It was just kind of pointless. It's like, if no one wants to do the scaffold match the way it's supposed to be done, why don't you just not have the scaffold and have a wrestling match?
That sounds like a better plan.
Especially for Steve Austin's debut. What?
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, well, we then go to our commentators, Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone.
Whoa. Tony Schiavone? More like Tony Schiavone. Because Tony Schiavone, he never disappoints me with having a completely different look every time we see him. So this time he has dyed his hair blonde and it is stiff. Like, remember the Lego hair you talked about last week?
Oh, yeah.
That's what it is. He took off his hair and put on a blonde Lego thingy.
It's the greatest wig in the history of our sport.
Exactly.
So Jim mentions that Ric Flair is no longer the WCW champion. WCW made an offer to Ric Flair and he turned it down. So the title is vacant and a new champion will be crowned tonight. And Tony adds that this begins a new era for WCW. It does. Not really sure if that's a good thing. At this point in time.
When you just read that, I go, yeah, it does.
Well, now it is our first time seeing Eazy-E Eric Bischoff, the man who would later be in charge of WCW. Here is a lowly interviewer. He got his start in the AWA, actually, interviewing people, got a tryout with WWF where Vince made him interview a broom and wasn't hired. So there's that. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you interview a broom?
I guess if you can't get anything out of a broom, you're not a good interviewer.
It's like Family Guy. Oh my God, you a horse? Oh my God, you a broom?
Well, Eric is there with Arn Anderson and Paul E. Dangerously, aka Paul Heyman, who sends a message to Missy Hyatt. Paul says that he made a phone call and not to any of those thespians that Missy is seeing behind Jason Hervey's back. Yes, she was with Jason Hervey at the time in real life, but to somebody who will ensure that Missy doesn't lay a hand on Paul. And then Arn chimes in saying, if you lock us in a cage like criminals, we're going to commit criminal acts. And then he wraps up by saying, Missy, if you stick your head between those ropes, I'm going to make a real woman out of you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like Missy is like 40 and Jason Hervey's like 14.
Yeah, I don't think she was that old. I think
it's the bangs.
Yeah, we'll call it that. Well, with that whole disturbing thought of Arn and Missy and making a woman out of her in our heads, we go back to Jim and Tony, who are still trying to kill time while the scaffolding is removed from above the ring. They run down the rest of the card for tonight, and then we are ready for our next match.
Yes, it is a singles match between the Diamond Stud with Diamond Dallas Page versus the Z-Man. Oh, the Z-Man. Oh, Z-Man.
He's back.
I used to say, I don't need Jay Lethal on my TV anymore. And I feel like if I were watching in this era, I'd be like, I don't need the Z-Man on my TV anymore. That is no hate to Jay Lethal. I love him. He actually showed up on TV like last week, and I was very excited to see him. He was on TV a lot for a while. So that's how I feel about Z-Man. But obviously, we've seen the Z-Man. He was on our show last week, Wrestle War 91. But we got to talk about the Diamond Stud because it's Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, all of the above. But no, we saw him last week as Scott Hall on Great American, Rewind. We saw him last as Scott Hall on Great American Bash 1989, but he was part of a battle royal, so we didn't do a bio on him. And then last week, we didn't see him wrestle. We just kind of like got to see him. So that's why we're covering him this week. But let's talk about him. So he was born October 20th, 1958, and he died about 3 years ago, March 14th, 2022, at the age of 63. Do we know what caused his death? Was it just like years and years of harsh road life and wrestling, or did he have like a condition?
Largely contributed, yeah. And then he, ended up having heart attacks while I was in the hospital, and that just kind of did him in, yeah.
Got it. Okay, well, he was 32 on this pay-per-view, which kind of surprising. Normally, I feel like all of our really big stars like Undertaker and stuff have started out when they're like 21, 22. But the last pay-per-view we'll see him wrestle on is WWF Backlash 2002, which is weird because we're releasing this on the weekend of Backlash 2025. Cool.
Yeah.
So his real name is Scott Oliver Hall. He would gain greater fame in the WWF as Razor Ramon and as a founding member of the NWO in WCW, one of the greatest factions of all time, in my opinion. And he's also a two-time inductee into the WWE Hall of Fame, once as Razor Ramon in 2014 and once as a member of the NWO in 2020. So I'm glad he got those in before he passed away, because we talk about all the time how it's just like so unfortunate when they wait until after they have died to put them in the Hall of Fame. So
yeah, definitely
good for him. But let's go ahead and get into the match. This part, like, it made me laugh in my head, but Tony Schiavone says that Diamond Stud's finisher is a Diamond Death Drop, the DDD. Not the DDT by the guy with DDP. Yeah, you know me. Like,
Oh boy.
like,
Oh boy.
bro, did you know? And I might have even said this on this podcast before, but mother was shocked when I said this. So I didn't realize that was a real song. Because I thought
Yes.
it was just from Sister Act 2. Yeah, we're down
No.
with G.O.D. Yeah, you know me. And then I heard the real song on the radio. I was like, wait, Sister Act 2 stole that?
Oh my
Like,
God. Yes.
did not know until like this
Yes.
year. Like, I'm talking 3 months ago. Like,
Oh
it's
boy.
dumb. But I didn't realize until DDP says that Scott Hall is 6'7", and
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was that large. Just thinking back, I didn't think he was that big of a guy. So it was just like 6'5" and above the standard back then.
I mean, I don't know about the standard, but I mean, it was a lot easier to get hired the bigger you were, right?
Are there just like not as many men at that height anymore? Because I mean, again, I've met a lot of wrestlers, and a lot of them, I'm like, you look way bigger on TV. You're like a little bit taller than me. You're like 5'9".
Yeah, and the weird thing is like Scott Hall and guys like Billy Gunn, they don't look that big on TV, and then you meet them, and it's like, holy crap, you're huge.
Oh my God, Billy Gunn is massive. The person who shocked me the most of being like, you are huge in person was Konosuke Takeshita. Like,
oh, really?
He is freaking massive. And
wow.
I did not expect that. I saw like this giant like lion with this mane walking through the casino. And I was like, oh my God, that's Takeshita. He's massive. That's crazy. Whoa, Justin. This goes along with the lines of the whoa for what Paul Heyman said. Whoa. They bring a woman out of the crowd to help rip off Scott Hall's pants. Like, that's what it is. They say like help him get ready for his match, but she's just taking off his pants, and it's like the stripper pants that come off in one big pull. But I'm so distracted by the piece of roadkill on this woman's head. Oh wait, it's the bangs. The bangs are the thing of 1991.
The bangs were in, and they are regrettable.
There's so many layers to them. It's like you have to build them. Apparently,
it's like bangs on bangs on bangs. Yeah.
Did our mom have those? I feel like she did.
I think so. Yeah.
Ooh, how embarrassing. Z-Man, he enters with an entourage of pretty women, of course, and I feel like that's something that modern wrestling has kind of come away from. And I guess, like, why do you think that is? Like, why do you think having an entourage of women, like, they used to elevate talent by saying, oh, you have pretty girls around you, but they don't do that anymore. So why do you think that is?
I think we've all seen through it. Like, we all know that they're just locally hired actors, and it's like, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah, because like you don't see Roman Reigns walking in with a bunch of hot girls around him to make him seem cool. I mean, he's got Paul Heyman. That's like the opposite of a hot girl.
Well, not anymore.
Right? Exactly. But yeah, I was just curious why you thought that was. But
yeah, I mean, and if you look at it, like it's kind of weird. It's like
it is weird.
Like, I don't know. I think today it would just seem like kind of creepy rather than cool.
Absolutely. And I just don't know how our minds changed over time, because when we were kids, we're like, oh, that guy's cool because he has women all around him. Now it'd be like, that's weird. That's creepy. But Z-Man wastes no time. He hits a double clothesline on DDP and Scott Hall, like before his music even finishes.
Yeah. And like, it was super impressive because he was standing on that elevated ramp that's like the same level as the ring apron. And he didn't even take like a running start. He's standing there and leaps over the top rope to hit both guys when they were in the ring. I was like, holy crap. All right, Z-Man.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fit dude. Like, that's the thing is, I try to not hate on him. I feel like he's just around. But
yeah,
it just sucks that he doesn't have like a gimmick or a voice or there's something missing. But immediately after, they get out onto the floor and Scott Hall sends Z-Man flying over the guardrail and into the crowd. And like, I don't know if Z-Man just sold that incredibly well, but it looked awesome.
Yeah, no, like, he definitely, like, he's a good worker, right? Like he can get his ass kicked very well. He just gets his ass kicked too often.
Yes, he's a Mark Briscoe. He never wins,
right?
But he gets so beat up.
Right. Yes. Well, there's a dumb moment in this match that I always hate every time it happens. So back in the ring, Diamond Stud has a submission hold on Z-Man, right? and he grabs the top rope for, quote, leverage. We've already established that means nothing. But referee Nick Patrick asked Diamond Stud if he was grabbing the rope, and of course the answer is no. And then the referee asked the crowd, who all say yes. But then Nick Patrick ignores what they said. So, like, why even ask the crowd? Like, I've never seen a referee ask the crowd and be like, oh, is that the case? Okay, we'll call it. That's it.
I've never even seen a ref ask the crowd, so that was very strange to me. And I was also like, if the ref could ask the crowd, like 90% of matches would be different outcomes at this point because the crowd sees everything that the ref doesn't see, right? But I feel like on the manager standpoint, DDP has become a really good replacement for Jim Cornette. Like, he has great presence, and he becomes like a big part of the match the way Cornette did, you know, like, and that's no hate toward like Teddy Long or Slick or anyone. It's just like he's become his own character that's just as equally involved as the wrestler in the match.
Yeah, no, I agree. And he even has the name for his stable, the Diamond Mine. And so it works. Yeah,
for sure. And the match, we just talked about, it started off so hot, but then I felt like it kind of fizzled a little bit.
Yeah, it did. It started kind of feeling like, all right, guys, let's keep it going. Like, somewhere in there, Diamond Stud got his cheek busted open. Otherwise, what
a weird place to get busted open, right?
I know, he must have caught like a fist or a foot or something.
I know, but I'm like, I feel like this is the most flexible part. The only flexible part on my body is this cheek skin fat right here. Well, DDP tries to distract Z-Man. So Z-Man attacks him, so it worked. He was distracted, and Diamond Stud Scott Hall hits a back suplex for the win, or a suplex, as a was it Gorilla that we used to say that?
No, it was Gordon Soley.
It's Gordon Soley. That's who it was. I was like, Bob Caudle. I'm mixing up my old dudes, but Diamond Stud wins the match in 6 minutes and 57 seconds with the help of DDP. What'd you think of the match? We kind of talked about how it started hot and fizzled, but did you like it?
It was just good to see Scott Hall. I mean, even though he's basically already Razor Ramon here, good to see him in the ring.
Yeah. And honestly, like, on the girls' side, this is the first wrestler that I'm like, okay, I can see he's hot. Because all of the other guys, I've been like, oh, you're super like 90s hot. But like, I'm like, you're a good looking dude, Scott Hall. But JR and Tony, they talk about the upcoming match between Ron Simmons and Oz. And I am shocked that Oz lasted for more than one show, right?
He's here.
Because JR says we don't know much about Oz, but we sure know Ron Simmons. And I'm like, well, thank goodness. We got to know somebody. But they agree that Ron Simmons has been moving up the rankings, in quotes, and making a name for himself, which I'm like, that's good. Because, usually it's kind of like Beautiful Bobby. When you leave your tag team, you're kind of in an identity crisis and you have to build yourself back up again.
Yeah.
But whoop, there it is. Whoop. JR says that Ron was a 4-time All-American football player for the Florida State University. He can't help it. He can't help talking about it. He can't resist talking about that education. But JR warns that, oh no, Oz will have his manager, the Wizard, because he's so terrifying.
Welcome to Oz. Welcome to Oz.
Which, if you just looked at him, he really is kind of terrifying in that like creepy, like cheap mask kind of way. But I don't know if Ron should be terrified or just confused when he walks out there. But JR throws it to Gary Capetta to introduce the continuation of this monstrosity, aka the Oz match. But I just like to mention that even Gary Capetta sounds irritated. So like when Oz's big entrance with the green lights and everything comes out, or he walks out, and Gary Capetta's like, he stands 7 feet. He's 320 pounds. As the castle is brought in and whatnot.
Yeah. No, and I love how, like, when they were getting a tighter shot of Oz slowly rotating on that platform on the stage, you can see the Wizard back there, like, waiting for his entrance, like, kind of adjusting his robe and everything. It's like, oh, come on, guys.
I know. Like, it was kind of like we went to our niece's dance recital last week, and you could see, our niece is 4 and she's doing the dance, and you can see the teacher right in the wings doing the dance so they can all look to her. And that's exactly what I was like. It's like the Wizard. We can see you.
Let's get into this thing.
Oh,
It is, of course, a singles match. Oz with the Wizard, but not the Wizard of Oz. It's just Oz. Anyway, versus Ron Simmons. Lasso, both of these guys on Super Brawl. If you haven't been keeping track, yes, Oz is Kevin Nash.
Yeah. And okay, so Kevin Nash Oz, walks to the ring and JR says something. And I'm like, what? Because he says, you can tell a great athlete just by the way he walks. And that was a confident strut to the ring. Kevin Nash had the slowest, most defeated looking walk ever. JR.
He's walking to the death of his career.
That's what it looked like. Like there was nothing confident about that strut. You're going to call that a strut? What?
Yeah.
But I think he was just trying to balance that pointy hat and giant mask on his head. That thing's got to weigh 50 pounds. He's just like, oh.
Yeah, well, and then that porn music that they used for his entrance theme, it like gave him a little swagger, He's like, I feel pretty hot right now.
And why did they use that for Oz? Like they should have done like a really creepy, like put like follow the yellow brick road in like a minor key. That would have been kind of creepy, kind of cool, right? Like why porn music? But I don't know. But wait a minute, Justin. Wait a minute. Where the hell is the monkey?
That's what I want to know. I was so disappointed there was no monkey.
That was the only redeeming quality about this gimmick. Like, and I remember last week you were like, there's a fucking monkey. And this week, where's the monkey?
Nothing. There's no reason to watch this now.
No reason. But my question is, so is that a wig on Kevin Nash, or did they just put like baby powder in his hair like we did in junior high theater? When like the 13-year-old is playing the dad, so he always had the fake mustache and would put baby powder in his hair.
I think that's the right track. I think where we are. I think it matches the castle backdrop actually. In terms of quality.
Yeah, I'm just so shocked that this gimmick made it to see another pay-per-view. I thought it was going to be a one and done. I really did.
Yeah. Well, it should have been. But question, why would the Wizard of Oz have that tattoo on his arm? Or another way, why would a guy with that tattoo on his arm spend his nights dressing like the Wizard of Oz?
Money.
Okay.
Money will make you do anything. But yeah, I mean, I guess they didn't have tattoo cover up back then. But I don't know. He's the great and powerful Oz. He can do what he wants. But oh Lordy, Justin, this match was slow. Like
not even Ron Simmons could save this.
No, and it was a lot of standing around and looking at each other. And it was like anytime there was a big move, the other wrestler would do a counter move that would totally negate it. So nothing big happened. And it's so slow that a guy in the crowd yelled, boring. Did you hear that?
Yes.
Oh my God. I was like, they didn't edit that out. I'm surprised.
Yeah. Well, when the Wizard gets involved on the outside, his robe flies open for a second. And he's wearing jeans and a t-shirt under there. Like he's just getting worse by the minute. It's so just crap, low rent, didn't even try. Ron Simmons wins the match in 7:56. Do we have to keep talking about this one?
All I have to say is remember how I joked earlier about how they should have just canceled the whole show?
Yeah,
we'll keep going. We'll keep going.
I feel
it must be real hot in that arena because when they zoom in on all the crowd members like cheering for Ron Simmons, they are all super shiny and sweaty, and I bet it smells wonderful.
Oh God, it just
it's
some
funny
things never change.
When I go to a wrestling show, at least like a WWE or AEW, not so much for the local indies. Every time I walk in, I'm like, oh my God, it's freezing in here. And then after about 10 minutes into the second match, it feels pretty comfortable. I'm like, oh, thank God it was freezing earlier because people would be stinky now. Yeah.
Well, back to Jim and Tony, who talk a bit about the upcoming match. Then they toss to a package running down this week's WCW Top 10. Nice. Top 10 what? Who knows? But we're going to talk about it. But I do love on the graphic here, they have a background and it's teal, pink, and purple lit glass bricks. Screams to my 90s love and heart.
Hell yeah.
Love it.
Hell yeah.
So anyway, here's the top 10 in WCW for this week. If you're curious, number 10, Johnny B. Bad. Number 9, Ron Simmons. Number 8, Diamond Stud. Number 7, El Gigante. Number 6, Arn Anderson. Number 5, Bobby Eaton. Number 4, Steve Austin. Number 3, Sting. Number 2, Barry Windham. And number 1, Lex Luger. And with all that, not knowing what it means, let's go to the next match.
Top 10 hair. I mean, everyone's got pretty good hair in that.
Yeah.
There's no bald guy. Oh, no, Ron Simmons. Never mind. You're kind of bald.
No,
this
he's not
week.
bald. Not bald.
He's not. Oh, I thought he was bald this week.
No,
I guess
El
you're
Gigante
right.
was.
Right. Okay. Which that
Yeah.
was weird. Didn't like that. But anyway, we've got a singles match with Richard Morton, and he is with Alexander York versus Robert Gibson. Oh,
Mhm.
snap. This is the first match where I was like, yes, a story. This is great. But we lost all these guys on Super Brawl last week, and then Robert Gibson hasn't wrestled since Great American Bash 1990. So
Yeah,
it's
he's
been
out
about
that injury.
Yeah, that knee injury. So let's get into it.
Yeah, so the Rock and Roll Express has broken up, and Ricky Morton has joined the York Foundation and changed his name to Richard Morton. So that's what you do, I guess. But I felt bad for Robert Gibson entering alone here. You know, we've always seen him with the Rock and Roll Express. He and Bobby Eaton should like be friends since their friends both left them.
Oh my God, yes.
They could
that would
be the
wonderful.
Express.
Express. That's
It's
so
like super
express.
fast.
Hell yeah. No,
Yeah.
they really should, because I feel real sorry for him too. But I think Ricky Morton, he took Oz's wig or his baby powder or whatever, because they have the exact same hair. It's like a grayish, lightish, like short ponytail with bangs. And I was like, that is Kevin Nash's hair right there.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. Well, the match starts right on the ramp, you know, and there's anger behind this. And I always love a tag team and they turn on each other and they start. Yeah, it was great. I always like a match of passion.
yes. It's like brothers fighting each other.
Yes.
It's great. One thing I noticed though, both of these guys are still dressed similarly, right? Like wearing the old Rock and Roll Express gear with the bandana around their waist and everything, and the fringe and everything. With Morton being like a corporate bad guy, I kind of wanted to see him dressed differently on this.
Right. I mean, it's becoming its own faction, and it's not like Terry Taylor is a rooster. He's got a suit and stuff like that. So no, I agree. And it's also that would kind of build into the whole life storyline of like rock and roll is against the corporate man. And so I agree with you on that for sure. But Alexander York and this whole gimmick is just goofy. She's looking at her speak and spell and telling Ricky like what? Like what is she telling him? Does the computer tell him what moves to do?
I think that's the idea. Personally, I think she's just playing hangman over there by herself. She's like, I forgot what word I typed in.
What's the category?
Oh, geez, Louise. Do I have to spin the wheel or buy a vowel? Is that how this works?
Damn it. He's got a hat on now. That means he's home.
Oh, no.
Well, Ricky Morton, he's now being called Richard. He should be Dick Morton.
Yeah, right? Dick Morton. That sounds like a corporate guy. And it's weird that we always called him Ricky, but we never called Robert Bobby. Like, it feels like those should be switched now. Dick Morton and Bobby Gibson.
Probably because of Bobby Eaton, and then their tag team would have to be the Bobbies, and that might be kind of silly.
Could be. Yeah, they'd be dressed like British police or whatever.
Right. Oh, that'd be kind of cute. But Dick Morton, I'm going to rename him Dick Morton, rips open Robert Gibson's pants to expose the knee brace and make it known that he's attacking that previously injured knee. And Gibson, which this didn't occur to me, but apparently, thank you, JR, ends up using the metal pieces in the brace to injure. He uses it as a weapon, basically. So thank you, JR, for letting me know that, because otherwise I was like, how's he doing that?
But hey, you remember when Gibson was originally attacked and was taken out of action, and commentary said that the attackers stole Gibson's pants?
Yeah.
It's a trend. Like, he needs to buy a belt or something. Also, did you know Dick Morton's brother is now in AEW?
No.
Yeah, he's that luchador, Beast Morton.
Oh my God, you're dumb. I was like, where's he going with this? Where is he going with this? Hey, I mean, Robert Gibson was just on AEW, so maybe he was there visiting his cousin or son or
Could be.
whoever
Could
Beast
be.
Morton is. Dick Morton's such a better name. Why didn't they do that? But
I don't
anyway,
know.
while Alexandra York distracts the ref, Ricky Morton smashes the computer over Robert Gibson's head.
Evil. I mean,
Evil.
I don't really care about his head. I was just making sure the computer was okay.
Well, it's an expensive thing that he did because I looked up how much a laptop cost in 1991, right? So, and so I literally Google laptop cost 1991, and apparently there were laptops back then. There was even an Apple laptop. It was called the Apple PowerBook 100, and in
Yes.
1991 it cost about $2,300, which
Yeah.
that is the equivalent to $4,247 today. And I'm like, 2,300? I think I paid 2,200 for my MacBook Pro that I bought this year that I'm on right now. Like,
Yeah.
so dang, that was an expensive. So my question is, whose paycheck is going to cover that computer replacement?
Well, it depends. Did Alexandra York win her hangman game? Because that's worth a lot of money, right? If she never landed on a bankrupt and
That's true. And
Yeah.
we all know it was just a speak and spell. But
A, B, C.
reminds me of that Limp Bizkit song. No one knows what it's like. Sorry, that was an early 2000s reference. But does that mean Terry Taylor's dead now? Because he was the computerized man and the computer is smashed. So does that
Wouldn't
mean
it be
he's
so
dead?
great if he just like started glitching out in the middle of the range? Like,
And like the lights would flicker and he'd be like, that would be
Right.
so amazing. Well, Dick Morton, he won that match in 17 minutes and 23 seconds. I thought this was the better match so far. What did you think?
Yeah, definitely. It had a story behind it, and both guys know each other well and work together well. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah, so Eric Bischoff, who I gotta say, he was kind of a looker back in the day. I mean, he's always been like a handsome guy, but I forget like how conventionally attractive he was, especially back then. Like, I understand why he was hired as an interviewer, but he's backstage with Dustin Rhodes and the Young Pistols, where he says that they are moments away from their match with the Fabulous Freebirds and Bad Street. Tracy Smothers says that they are 3 thoroughbred racehorses that are not here for a match, but for a fight. And I just got to say that I can't even remember if it's Tracy Smothers or Steve Armstrong. I think it's Steve Armstrong. He looks so much like Logan Paul right here.
I know.
Like, oh my God, like the face is the same.
Yeah.
But anyway, Steve Armstrong tells us how the elimination match works. Thank you, Steve. And then Dustin Rhodes says it's the greatest night of his professional career being in this 6-man tag team match. But whoa, he is talking exactly like Dusty, and it
like
made me laugh.
intentionally.
Yes. Oh, it's totally intentional. Like, it's a character, and I don't hate it, and I totally get why he was doing it, but you can tell it is an act and a character choice.
Oh man, that came out of nowhere. I was like, what is he doing?
I know. I was like, are you having a stroke? Are you okay? And then he threw in a baby. He's like, baby. And I was like, oh, okay. But I like it. I totally get why he's doing it. I would, if my dad were a famous wrestler, I would sell the hell out of that, just like everyone does. I would do it. But these guys are hyped up, and we go to the match.
Well, let's do it. It is Dustin Rhodes and the Young Pistols versus the Fabulous Freebirds in a 6-man tag team elimination match. We last saw all these guys wrestle on Super Brawl 91, except for Bad Street, who we last saw in a match on Wrestle War 91 as Brad Armstrong. So his brother is across the ring from him, Steve.
Yes. And so supposedly WCW, because remember how Brad Armstrong was the guy that came out in those wings and a mask and a Fantasia shirt. So supposedly WCW was worried that they were going to get sued by Disney for the use of Fantasia. So they changed Brad Armstrong's name to Bad Street, and he ditched the feathers, but he kept the mask, but it's more like a lucha mask now. It's not like a bird beak. It's like covers his whole head.
Yeah, and he's dressed a lot like Rey Mysterio will be when he makes his debut in WCW, like full body spandex with like the mask and everything. But the Freebirds with the American flags all over their gear, that seemed like a better choice for good guys, didn't it?
It really did. It was strange. But the Freebirds clothes, they always
Yeah,
Excuse me.
there's been some choices.
Right.
But Dustin mocks Michael Hayes by doing the moonwalk in the ring, and it definitely seems like they're trying to give him more of that Dusty charisma, to give him like something of a personality.
I mean, why wouldn't you? Again, I totally get it. Dusty is, slowing down in the ring and Dusty's been a great success. Let's do it again. Hell,
Yeah.
if you put one of Sting's son in the full crow outfit, I'd be all over that. I wouldn't be like, oh, this is dumb. I'd be like, Sting again. I'd be excited. JR does announce that the WCW magazine will hit newsstands on August 6th. So did you ever buy wrestling magazines?
Oh, did I? What did I? Let me tell you this.
Yes.
I had a subscription to WWF magazine that my mom
did.
Yeah, our mom would renew every year as part of like my birthday or something. I remember the first one I ever got had Miss Elizabeth on the cover. And I mean, I got those for years. And then when they came out with Raw magazine, which was like a little bit more insider and it had like hotter pictures of the women at the time, I started getting that too. And then I think it all went by the wayside eventually once nobody...
I want to know what mama you had growing up, because my mama would have said that's too expensive. You're not getting a subscription. I would get like a J14 magazine. You know what I got? Justin? I got highlights. And it was because our grandma sent them to us. She paid the
highlights.
Highlights.
And I remember that we also got Reader's Digest.
Yeah, Justin, we were at Rose's this week on Monday eating lunch. There was an old woman there eating by herself. She had a Reader's Digest. I was like, they still make that.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but no, like you got pay-per-views, you got to have friends over, you got to have a party, a cast party, and you got a dog. Like you were the favorite. We were the poor kids that got the leftovers.
Well, somebody has to be the machete that chops through the weeds to, let the others through.
Yeah, okay. But speaking of, he says that the wrestling magazine will hit the newsstand. Do newsstands even still exist?
That's a good question. I mean, I would think so. There's a coffee place near here called the Newsstand. Does that count?
See, I feel like in New York and stuff, it's more like a little convenience store, and then they happen to have like the New York Times. Right. Well,
Michael Hayes eliminates Steve Armstrong. I mean, there's a bunch of action that we're skipping over here, but it really is just a bunch of back and forth playing to the crowd. But Michael Hayes eliminates Steve Armstrong. That's what kicks off the eliminations.
Yeah. And why does it look like it says fajitas on the Freebirds' butts?
Oh, I like me some steak fajitas, some chicken fajitas. That's my Michael Hayes. I can't really do one. Meanwhile, the Pistols trunks are the same color as a 1970s dishwasher. So that's nice.
Hey, I appreciate that.
But Michael Hayes is then eliminated almost immediately via disqualification because he backdropped Tracy over the ropes. And apparently we're choosing to enforce that rule this week. Yeah. So there was that. Then Tracy Smothers is eliminated by Jimmy Garvin. Jimmy Garvin is eliminated by Dustin Rhodes, leaving just Dustin Rhodes and Bad Street.
And here's what's funny. Dustin Rhodes, I mentioned it last week how I thought it was funny. He did it again. He counted his own pin again while the ref was distracted. And so I kind of hope this is like his official thing because I think it's funny.
But he says the numbers like Dusty, 1, baby, 2, baby, 3, baby. But finally, Bad Street is eliminated by Dustin Rhodes. Dustin Rhodes and the Young Pistols win the match, with Dustin being the sole survivor in 17 minutes and 3 seconds.
Yeah, like it was weird. I didn't have a lot to say about this match because I felt like once the eliminations got started, they all happened like really fast, like back to back to back, They did, which is crazy that it was a 17-minute match, because once that happened, it was just like bang, bang, bang. Okay, it's over. Yeah, I felt like all of the eliminations were in the last 5 minutes of the match. And the match went by really fast, I thought. Yeah. No, it did. It did. So it really wasn't bad. Back to Jim and Tony briefly. We talk about the chain match later tonight, as well as the main event, before they toss to the next match with two men who JR says have, quote, complex personalities. Okay, well, we've got a singles match with Johnny B. Bad. And of course, he's got Teddy Long with him versus the Yellow Dog. So let's talk about Johnny B. Bags. We haven't seen him wrestle before. So he was born on July 9th, 1960, and he is still alive today at the age of 64. Good for him. He was 31 on this show, which kind of surprised me, but last pay-per-view we'll see him wrestle on is WWF Capital Carnage 1998. So his real name is Mark Mero. I don't know if that's a Spanish name or Miro.
I think it's just Mero.
Mero? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like to get fancy with my names. But before wrestling, he was a Golden Gloves boxer, but he didn't go to college, so JR couldn't talk about it. He had to talk about him being a boxer. But he was also the husband of Rena Mero, aka Sable, before she, married Brock Lesnar, which that is so strange to me because I feel like they were in totally different generations of wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah. But these days, you know what he does? He works as a motivational speaker.
How about that?
Yeah, you can hire him like at your company and he'll come be like, do work. Cool. But the yellow dog, you may think you've never seen him before, but you saw him wrestle last time on Super Brawl #1 as Flying Brian. That's right.
That's right.
Yes. So ahead of this show, Barry Windham had defeated Flying Brian in a loser leaves town match, right? So soon after, the yellow dog appeared and he's wearing a mask and he looks suspiciously like Brian Pillman. The idea being, if it was proven to be Brian Pillman, he would be fired per the stipulations of that previous match. And it's kind of a weird, like Matrix is collapsing synchronistic moment for current wrestling because this is totally El Grande Americano and Chad Gable right now in 2025. Am I wrong here?
Yeah, totally. And and I love what they're doing with that too. Like it's goofy as hell, but it's I love it.
Oh, I think it's so funny, especially when Chad Gable will tweet and he's like, great job, Grande Americano. You did great tonight.
Well, and I love that he was in as Chad Gable. He was in the Battle Royal the night before WrestleMania because it's supposed to be all the guys who didn't get a WrestleMania match. Right. Even though El Grande Americano had one, Chad Gable didn't. So it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was. But hey, I like this match because the yellow dog has a yellow dog with him. I mean, it's like a Labrador, like a golden lab, but he's on his way to the ring with him and it's cute. He's not wearing a muzzle. He doesn't look like he's with animal control. And he just kind of leaves the dog with his handler and then gets in the ring. We didn't abuse any animals this week. Yeah,
well, he also has a mask that leaves nothing to the imagination. It's like how we were expected to believe that nobody knew who the Lone Ranger was with just a strip of fabric across his eyes. It's
right.
Come on, go rob a bank in that mask and see what happens.
He should have worn that stupid wizard mask. That's a little more, it would cover up a little more. But, oh man, you mentioned last week that Johnny B. Bad is like a replica of Little Richard. He really is. Like, you weren't kidding. Like, his look, his mannerisms, his voice, everything.
Yeah, they gave him that 50s, like, jukebox music as his entrance song. Like, everything. They're going to the max.
Yeah, the max, like on Saved by the Bell.
Max.
Ayo! Yeah. Well, right before the match starts, the screen goes black and we get a message that reads, presented in the most complete form possible due to original production technical difficulties. Now, Justin, according to Reddit, that's a lie. Because what really happened, do you know this story?
I don't.
Okay, what really happened is that Brian Pillman yelled out that Johnny is gay, which started a very not nice chant from the crowd, and that's what they took
Interesting. Huh.
Which is weird because on previous shows they've left it, because we can hear them chanting it like the Freebirds and stuff. So that's just according to Reddit, what they say about it. Yeah.
Well, also in the crowd is Vladimir, the super fan. He's usually at WWF shows, but I mean, they zoom in on him in the crowd here, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Is he the guy that wears a green shirt now? No, I'm just kidding. That's him. That's Vladimir. He doesn't age. But this match is a little slow for a Pillman match. But mainly it's just a couple moves followed by Johnny trying to take off Yellow's mask and then Yellow Dog escaping and adjusting his mask.
Yeah, how great would it have been if like Johnny gave Yellow Dog a wedgie and the underwear that were pulled up had the orange and black stripes on them like Flying Brian wears?
Oh, that would have been smart. Why were you not a booker at this time?
I have no idea. Meanwhile, Johnny B. Bad has some interesting trunks. They're like black, but then there's tassels on the front and back of them, and they're in the shape of a thong, like cupping his junk and then going up his crack.
I noticed that. I was like, well, he's got a whale tail going on, and I didn't know, like like, was he trying to obviously be Little Richard, or was that just an aesthetic back then? You know, like a lot of.
Oh no, that's directly who he was trying to be.
Okay, I just didn't know. And then also, like, is he supposed to be perceived as like this gay feminine wrestler with the
Yes.
thongs and the fringes? I mean, how can you
Yes.
not, you know? Okay. I was just wondering because I was 1 year old at this time, so I didn't know how
Right.
it was perceived back then. Got it. Well, Teddy Long gets pissed that the yellow dog is kicking Johnny's butt, basically. So he chokes him, which gets Johnny B. Bad disqualified. And the yellow dog wins the match via disqualification in 6 minutes even. Did you like it?
No.
No?
I mean, it was just slow. It was like you knew Pillman could do so much more, and
Yeah.
Johnny B. Bad was kind of limited. Big personality, not much in the ring. So, you know.
That was the vibe I got, that Pillman could obviously do so much more, and that maybe I almost said Little Richard was a little green, and so it kind of, he had to work down to that level. No hate on Little Richard, but
Yeah.
anyway, I liked it just fine, just because I really like the Grande Americano gimmick, and so it just
Right.
reminded me of that. So I liked it, and I got to see a dog. But after the match, Yellow Dog continues to beat up Teddy Long, and Johnny B. Bad comes to Teddy's rescue. Well, he punches Yellow Dog, and then about a second later, Yellow Dog goes flying out of the ring. It was very funny. He like punched him, and then Yellow Dog was like, "Oh God," and like goes flying out of the ring. But Yellow Dog gets back in the ring for more, but Teddy and Johnny just take off running. So that's over. Hoi, ay. Coming up next. Oh boy. Okay,
Oh,
so
boy.
Eric Bischoff is backstage, and this is like the total remix of Missy Hyatt's locker room interview segment, but it's Eric. And he boasts that he gets to go into the ladies' locker room and interview Missy, and it's the first time, everything Missy just did. So the door opens, and Missy's attendant, quote, lets Missy know that she has a card waiting for her. So Missy says, "Can you read it to me, please?" And I'm really good at Missy Hyatt because she sounds like every teacher I had growing up. And it reads, "Keep a dream in your heart and follow it always. Have fun and don't get hurt. Love, Jason." Like being from Jason Hervey, right? So Eric says that he isn't anything like the character he plays on ABC's The Wonder Years. And I'm like, hold the phone. The Wonder Years is still like being produced on ABC right now.
Yeah.
So Wayne is 14 and Missy is an adult. Like, that's just what I got from that. But also,
I mean,
I just always think The Wonder Years was in the 70s, which it was. But like, I just feel like it's such a much older show than the 90s. That's just me. Ugh. But anyway, so Eric goes into the locker room, can't find Missy, but he hears the shower running behind a closed door
God.
and sees Missy's clothes waiting outside the door. Very much like the Stan Hansen shower situation that Missy had, right? Like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So he says, "I love this job. Somebody's got to do it, right?" And he opens the door. And the door basically opens to a giant shower. It's like a prison shower. There's not stalls. It's just one big shower. And there's a dark-headed woman showering. And at first, I didn't think that was Missy Hyatt because she's blonde. And I have not seen her with dark hair. So I was like, who's this random woman showering? And then Eric goes, "Missy Hyatt, I want to talk to you about the match." And nope, it's Missy. She's pissed. And she's like throwing stuff like shampoo bottles at Eric and yelling, "Help! Peeping Tom! Peeping Tom!"
God.
And Eric is flustered as hell, apologizes, and he sends us viewers back to the arena to JR and Tony. And JR says that there were multiple volunteers to do that locker room interview with Missy. And Tony Schiavone says, "I volunteered."
Oh, God.
Then JR brings up the lumberjack match and sends it to Gary Capetta.
Yeah. Let's get into it, please.
Let's do
A lumberjack match, Big Josh versus Black Blood. Now, when we last saw Big Josh on Super Brawl, he's the big lumberjack guy, right? Black Blood, we last saw on WrestleMania 3 as Billy Jack Haynes, who, as of just this past week, had a Dark Side of the Ring episode about him.
Ooh, I need to see that.
Yeah, it's not fun. So if you don't know, a lumberjack match is when wrestlers surround the ring to make sure the action stays in the ring. So if Big Josh or Black Blood lands on the floor or tries to leave, they get rolled right back in. And guys on the side of the ring, there's Junkyard Dog, Dustin Rhodes, Black Bart, PN News, Bobby Eaton, Dick Murdoch, and Dick Slater. I think that covers all of them.
Yeah, so basically all the guys that like had a match and they just happen to be there anyway, so they just kind of come out. This Black Blood, Black Bart, Black Scorpion, whatever, like what is going on? I know it's a Dark Scorpion, but Big Josh has replaced his bears with pretty lumberjack women. Again, it's this weird women gimmick, but thank God, because those bears, that whole thing was almost as bad as the Oz gimmick, like almost.
For anybody wondering, the women didn't have leashes or muzzles on them, by the way.
But maybe they should have. Oh. Well, Black Blood has a giant axe and a hood, like an executioner. And you mentioned Spirit Halloween last week. I think WCW just raided a Spirit Halloween and made characters from the costumes that they got for cheap. Like, that's what this is starting to look like. And he does end up taking off his hood, but then he reveals like a black and red lucha type mask under it.
Yeah, well, and then he was like announced from being from a little town in France.
Yeah, what?
Like, did nobody have an atlas or an encyclopedia? Just find the name of some town in France and you're good.
And also, why do you look like that? If you're like, I'm a little bit disappointed because I'm sure there was some Spirit Halloween Frenchman costume with a beret and a paintbrush and a ho-ho or something.
Like, why does he have to be from France? I don't get it.
It's so random. It just reminds me of Coneheads when he's like, France, we come from France.
Yeah.
That's a great movie, by the way. I bet your wife hasn't seen that because your wife hasn't seen Pee-wee or Drop Dead Fred, and I bet she hasn't seen Coneheads.
I don't know. I don't
Girl,
know.
I know you listening to me right now. But anyway, we get another log roll. Yes, that's like the one thing I like about Big Josh. Not the one thing, but so are we going to see this every match with Big Josh? Because I'm very into it.
I don't know how many we have left, but sure.
Well, I guess he's going to ditch it when he goes to Doink, which I posted a TikTok this week about this episode or last week's episode, I mean. And a guy was like, oh yeah, we got to see the log roll. And I'm like, yes, thank you.
Yes.
So if you're listening and you commented, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, this match is not much. It consists pretty much of two things: a bunch of chops and the guys getting thrown outside so they could be thrown back into the ring. And that's truly the match.
It really is. And a brawl kind of breaks out amongst all of the lumberjacks on the outside. Yeah. And the camera guys actually focus on that more so than the match. But I was okay with it because I was more interested in that. You know? The focus goes back to Big Josh and Black Blood, but then it quickly turns into a second brawl and they're focusing on that again. But then kind of in the background, this allows Black Blood to get his axe. And thankfully, Dustin Rhodes takes out Black Blood's knee, Tanya Harding style, with a baseball bat.
What was Black Blood going to do with that axe? Like,
I know. It's like, was he going to chop off his head?
I don't know. But Big Josh wins the match in 5 minutes, 39 seconds. Any thoughts on this one?
Thank goodness the lumberjacks were there to make it more interesting because I think it had to be a lumberjack match for it to have any sort of entertaining value whatsoever.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, back to Jim and Tony. JR says that lumberjack matches can be very unpredictable, as we just saw. No, JR, that's exactly what I predicted that match would be.
Exactly.
So I appreciate you trying to save it, but no. They run down the rest of the card before throwing things back to Gary Michael Capetta. One-man gang enters with Kevin Sullivan, who's in his demonic gimmick these days. But gang enters without the weird hand motions that he did as Akeem. Kind of disappointing. I don't know. Maybe it's an allergic reaction of the color yellow. I don't know what it was. But they meet Eric Bischoff on the ramp, who asks Kevin what they are trying to prove. And Sullivan then starts talking about the Dungeon of Doom and the woman with the third eye and a death wagon and other mumbo jumbo. I don't know.
All I have to say is Beetlejuice, 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 because why does Kevin Sullivan look just like Beetlejuice?
I don't know. There's a lot I can't explain on this show, including this. El Gigante makes his entrance. And what do you do to make a 7'7" guy more likable? You add 4 little people to his entrance, 3 surrounding him, 1 on his shoulder, none of them above the height of Gigante's waist. This is weird. Let's just go to the match.
It was so weird, dude. Okay. We'll talk about that. But singles match, El Gigante versus the one-man gang with his manager, Beetlejuice Kevin Sullivan. We last saw El Gigante on Super Brawl just last week, but the one-man gang, he was Akeem in WrestleMania 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, yeah. So the little people are all attacking one-man gang in the beginning of the ring, and then they exit the ring and they turn their attention to Kevin Sullivan. And it just occurred to me, oh my gosh, so does he so Kevin Sullivan has like black paint around his eyes, right?
Right. Yeah.
And he's the wizard, right?
I think so. Yeah.
So do you think he had that black makeup on to like hide his eyes and the skin around his eyes for the wizard mask? And then
it could be like he was doing that gimmick. The whole like Dungeon of Doom thing at the time. So like maybe it served a dual purpose.
Yeah, because I could see him being like, oh, this makeup looks cool. Let's keep it on or something like that. I don't know.
Right.
But man, one-man gang, he attacked El Gigante with a wrench. What a tool.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Well, that was so dumb, though, because like every time Gang or Sullivan dropped the wrench on the ground, it makes this like clang noise. Like we can hear it at home, but the referee can't. And like, you can't blame the crowd for the noise on this one because they were quieter than a mouse pissing on cotton.
A mouse pissing on cotton. Did you make that up or is that like a known phrase?
I think it's a known phrase.
Really? I'm learning so many phrases this week that I swear you people make up. So Kevin Sullivan, like at one point, Kevin Sullivan's outside the ring and El Gigante's like laying on his back. And Kevin Sullivan's trying to grab him by the hair, and JR says Kevin Sullivan just can't reach. No, El Gigante just has a buzz cut, and you can't grab hair that's like less than half an inch long, dude.
Yeah. There's a lot of excuses that could be made throughout these several minutes here. I don't have much to say, honestly. Like I can't contribute here. I was actually begging for that guy who yelled boring to like zip up his pants and come back from the restroom.
Right. And also, why does JR, he calls him Elegante, not El Gigante. And if you don't know what the Elegante is, that is a hotel in Odessa, Texas with the worst commercials known to man. Go on YouTube right now and type in MCM Elegante commercials. There you go. You've got
every time that I hear somebody call something relaxing, I still go, it's relaxing.
Right. And I'm like, shoes. No, that's the mall. That's the MCM mall because they're all owned by the same people. The shoes, and more shoes. And then I also, like, if I go out to dinner with Mark, I like to say, no phones, just us, because that was in the hotel commercial. Oh, it's so bad.
That's the hotel where I saw Steve-O live.
We saw him together.
Yeah, that's right.
And like we saw Steve-O performing at MCM Elegante in like 2012, 2013.
Something, yeah.
Oh, I think Steve-O's had a little bit more of a comeuppance since then. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. But Kevin Sullivan gets on the top turnbuckle and he tries to get involved, but meanwhile, the ref is Rick Knoxing it. He's just pretending he doesn't see it. So.
I wish I were Rick Knox. I mean, I'm blind and I couldn't watch this match.
Well, El Gigante knocks him down, but then Kevin hands one-man gang some ninja powder. Because remember, this is a thing on WCW once again. We have the ninja powder again.
Yes.
And El Gigante like manages to like kick the powder out of one-man gang's hand, like onto his face, which gets him the win. El Gigante wins the match in 6 minutes and 13 seconds. And this match, I am not saying this to be funny. I am not saying this to exaggerate. This match was literally in slow motion.
Yeah, no, this was just painful.
It was bad.
I'm so glad it's done.
Oh, it was bad. Enough of that. So remember what I said about canceling the whole show? Yeah. So JR and Tony talk about the upcoming Russian chain match with Sting and Nikita Koloff. And JR says that this is Nikita's specialty and that Sting doesn't have much experience with it. And Tony says since it's a brawl, Nikita has an advantage. And JR introduces a recap video of kind of the feud that brewed between Sting and Nikita. And he accidentally says, Lex and Nikita. Oh, excuse me, Sting and Nikita Koloff. Womp womp. Whoops. So then we see the backstage fight from Super Brawl that we saw last week with Sting and Nikita, along with Nikita attacking Sting at WCW Pro and at Clash of the Champions. So Sting got attacked even when he had a young Sting fan like sitting on his shoulder. And I'm like, God, Nikita, how are you going to attack a man while he's got a kid in the audience on his shoulder? But honestly, that kid looked like Sting. And I was like,
Yeah.
could that be his son? But this kid looks about 11 years old. And I think that's too old to be Sting's kid at this point, because I know one of his sons is 31 now in 2025.
It was definitely set up somehow because he had the exact same face paint as Sting.
Yes.
And it was like perfectly done. So I wondered the same thing.
And I mean, even his face looked like him. But yeah. I think because I mean, I'm 34 and I was born in 90. And so that kid was like 11. So unless Sting has some love child or something somewhere that we don't know about. Anyway, after this recap, we go to the strap match. I mean, the I can't talk. I want to say the train match so bad. So it's going to be the Russian train match.
Yes. It is a Russian chain match.
Thank you.
Nikita Koloff versus Sting. Last saw these guys in a match on Super Brawl. Now, the rules are the same as a strap match, right? Both guys are attached at the wrist by a 10-foot chain. To win, you must touch all four corners consecutively, and it's just a Russian chain instead of a strap. So a strap with an accent, I suppose. Like a strap is one thing, but a chain, like there's so many pinch points.
Ooh, you're right. Because like I remember even just that stupid little bike chain you had, like that hurt. Like the thing you used to lock up your bike, that thing hurt. But poor Nikita, he gets no music at all, but Sting sure does. And Sting gets a great reaction. And people are holding up their Sting t-shirts, I guess that they bought at the show. And it's really freaking cool, dude. Because I just recently bought a new vintage Sting shirt from the AEW shop. And the font, the colors, and everything looks exactly like a lot of these shirts. It's like they reproduced an old shirt from back then. It's super cool.
Which would be a great idea. Like, remake some of these. It's pretty cool.
Because the one I have, it's pink and it says Sting in that font that was used on all those shirts. And it says the final icon or something like that. It's really cool. But at one point, Sting takes Nikita over to the barricade to a sea of children. And the way Sting connects with kids in the audience reminds me a lot of Darby Allin, which, like obviously there's a connection there. So that's kind of cool.
That's awesome. It's so good to just see like Sting. We saw his first match on pay-per-view and to see him grow throughout these. It's really cool.
Yeah. And, strap matches kind of bug me. Because I feel like they only work in kayfabe. Like, because if it were real, I feel like it would take forever to consecutively touch all four corners with your opponent trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, it'd just be a tug of war like the whole time. And the other problem is like there's no official rule for when the count resets, right? Meaning the guy can touch like two corners and then the ref can reset the count just whenever he feels like it. So there needs to be like some sort of a rule that we are told about beyond referee's discretion.
Yeah, it needs to be more quantifiable. Like maybe you put a different color light on each one and you hit the button and like the light, the color goes up by your name or something a little more visual.
I've seen a match where they did that. I think it was WWE at some point had it where they had like a light on each ring post. And as you touched it, it turned on. But then I don't know that there was ever like even if they said you have to touch them all within X amount of time or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was kind of a weird ending. Sting and Nikita Koloff are basically going for the same final corner. And then Sting like tries to leap over Nikita to touch it. But instead he just pushes Nikita into it, which like forces Nikita forward to touch it first.
Right. Yeah. Interesting idea, but it was kind of, I'm sure for the live crowd, they're like, what just happened?
Yeah. So
well, Nikita Koloff wins the match in 11 minutes and 46 seconds.
Yeah, I just thought it was kind of a strange choice. Like maybe I'm biased, but Sting is obviously very over with the crowd. And I get that it makes Nikita like a bigger heel, but no one really seemed to care when Nikita won. But I think they would have cared if Sting won.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like it deflated them a little bit, honestly.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Sting and Koloff get into it a little after the match with Sting getting the upper hand. And then Sting notices that Koloff is standing with his legs straddling the chain. So what does our good, moral, upstanding fellow of a good guy do? Why, of course. He yanks the chain straight up into Koloss Putin's. Anyway, we now go back to Jim and Tony, who are tasked with killing enough time for the steel cage to be put in place. So they toss to a package on the Luger and Wyndham rivalry, and it's narrated with like lots of slow motion shots. Nowhere near as romantic as the video package we talked about last week, but still slow motion. Back to the arena where the cage is being lowered. Oh my God. Well, it was being lowered, but it has apparently stopped. And pyro shoots off the top of the cage, illuminating the fact that the cage is crooked. One corner is up higher and one is down like way lower. And it looks like it was put together by the Helen Keller construction crew. It's truly terrifying to think this thing is over people's heads.
I thought they were just trying to be like artistic with it or something.
Yeah. No, they're just not good at this. Jim and Tony talk a bit more about the history between Luger and Wyndham. And Tony, he actually has a great memory for what year and what city things happened in the past. Like he mentions that Barry Windham hasn't had a shot at the WCW championship since Great American Bash 1987. Just off the top of his head, he knew that. Crazy. And of course, JR just talks about football stats because, of course, with a reminder that these two used to be WCW tag team champions. Let's go to the ring for our main event.
Yes, our main event. It's a steel cage match for the now vacant WCW World Heavyweight Championship. We obviously saw Barry Windham and Lex Luger on Super Brawl just last week because they are some of the biggest names in the company. So, of course, we're going to see them often. Little bit of background. As we mentioned on the last episode, Ric Flair was the WCW champion, right? And then the original plan for this match was Flair defending his title against Lex Luger. However, Flair left the company due to a pay dispute. And at the time, the champion had to put down a $25,000 deposit on the belt to ensure that they wouldn't leave the company with the belt. And is that like a known thing in kayfabe, or is that like, okay, it was like real life?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure about that.
And the money dispute was, at least part of it was, he hadn't gotten paid his $25,000 when he said he was leaving the company. They didn't give it back.
Oh, like his deposit.
Right.
Oh, well, hell, I wouldn't. Okay, anyway. However, Ric Flair, believing that WCW owed him money, kept the big gold belt that we come to know and love. And upon signing with WWF, he started wearing the WCW belt on WWF TV, claiming to be the, quote, real world champion. And hey, if they didn't give me my money back, I keep the belt too.
Yeah, sure. But Michelle, if Ric Flair has the actual WCW belt, what did they use for the WCW championship in the meantime?
I am so glad you asked and pretended like you didn't know the answer. But that's how this works. Person A, person B. Yep. So WCW had commissioned a new belt to be made, but it wasn't ready in time for this pay-per-view. So maybe I should have canceled it. But anyway, Dusty Rhodes still had an old belt from Championship Wrestling in Florida. And a metal plate that said World Championship Wrestling was attached to the front. And it was like in size 14 Arial font. It was ridiculous. And yes, it is about as janky as it sounds. And then someone made the brilliant choice to zoom in on it at the beginning of the match when it's ugly as hell. And it looks like you literally just like, oh crap, let's put a sign on it. Like that's what it looks like.
It looks like something that would be used in a backyard wrestling federation.
Or it looks like, okay, the little plaque that says World Championship Wrestling, it looks like a refrigerator magnet and they stuck it to it. Yeah. Oh God, it was so bad. But Barry Windham, hello, he gets his own graphic. Like as soon as he's about to come out, it comes across the screen, Barry Windham. And I feel like that's the first one we've seen, correct?
I think so.
But they spelled his name wrong.
No, they didn't.
I didn't notice that. Okay, it's like in this cool blocky font, but it is spelled Windam. There's no H.
Windam.
Yep. I'm surprised you didn't notice this because you're my grammar buddy. Yeah, they spelled that wrong.
So funny.
Totally.
It's always so funny to me how wrestlers in a cage match, they come down and they like grab the cage and inspect the cage. Mm-hmm. Like you don't see football players running onto the field and then making sure the goalpost is properly constructed.
Justin, this is WCW. You saw the
Well, that's
shoddiness
true.
of
They
all of
probably
the
want to
cages.
check that out.
They want to make sure.
Yeah.
Why do you think those dudes didn't want to fall from the scaffold? Like, this is WCW at this point. I'd be
True.
checking that too. But oh boy. Oh, this is bad. So it's your main event, and on two separate occasions, the fans start chanting, "We want Flair. We want Flair." And I feel bad for Barry. I really do.
I know. Well, and at one point the chants were like really loud. Like, I think WCW done messed up here.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just, I just feel like they should have shelled out money, done whatever they could to keep Ric Flair, because that's like your dude, right? Like, that's your guy. But hey, Justin, did you know that Barry Windham graduated with almost a 4.0 in college?
You know what? I did know that. JR told me.
Yep. Because it's so relevant to this wrestling match.
I know.
And I also feel like every time JR brings up education, it's because the match is in a lull. Don't you think?
Kind of seems that way. Yeah.
It does,
He tries to talk us up about the guys who we're trying to care about.
Right. And then I have another question, and maybe I'm just being picky, but what's the point of this match being in the cage? Because like they don't interact with the cage at all.
I don't know. And honestly, like it feels like it slowed everything down. Like this should be a good, exciting match. Lex Luger and Barry Windham, but everything was just so slow.
Mm-hmm. And it was almost like they didn't want to run the ropes or anything because they didn't want to run in the cage. Like everything was so central. It was very, very weird. But then what? Something weird happens again. You thought Black Bart was weird. Harley Race shows up, and he's with Mr. Hughes, and they walk down the ramp, and they get no reaction whatsoever. And I really think it's because I don't even think the crowd noticed him, because it wasn't like, now in like WWE, like we'll hear a noise or music hits and everyone in the ring pauses and the focus shifts to whoever's walking in. No, these guys just like kind of scurried down the ramp and didn't get noticed.
It's almost like they were walking around like, hey, look at that, a wrestling match. Let's go check it out.
Pretty much. And we haven't seen Harley Race in forever. And he is in his best baby blue game show host suit. And he starts like shouting out to Lex to help him. I guess he was shouting out what move to do. I couldn't really understand what he was saying, but
yeah, I think he was telling him to do the pile driver because that was Harley Race's move, right?
Okay. Well, their presence alone distracts Barry Windham enough to let Lex get in the pile driver and get the win. So Lex Luger wins the match and the championship in 11 minutes and 24 seconds. How'd you feel about our main event?
We've been waiting for Lex Luger to get this moment for a long time to become the WCW champion. Finally. Boy, do I wish it was in a better match than this.
Yeah, and it really sucks because Barry Windham's great wrestler, Lex Luger is. The cage threw him off, and the way the match came together, it just wasn't very organic. Yeah. And I feel like that, like Rick took away from Lex's moment, which I understand. You got to do what's best for yourself. But I felt real bad for these two guys because if I were Barry, I'd feel like crap with the crowd being like, we don't want to see you. We want to see Ric Flair,
Yeah.
Anyway, so, okay. So I'm like, at this point, I'm like, so are Harley and Mr. Hughes going to manage Lex now? Like Harley, I get, but Mr. Hughes is so random. I'm like, is he with the York Foundation anymore? Like, I have so many questions. And then JR like straight up says he's confused too. So if JR is confused, my confusion's totally justifiable.
Yeah, I think we're just going to have to see it play out. If it does, we might get to the next one and go, oh yeah, remember when that happened? That was weird.
Right. Well, before we go to the next match, I'm just going to say the show should have ended right here. It really
should have. It
absolutely
completely should have, because we are keeping the steel cage there for a mixed tag team match. Arn Anderson and Paul E. Dangerously versus Rick Steiner and Missy Hyatt. All right. So we've seen all these people wrestle before, except for Missy Hyatt. And we'll get into why it seems a little silly and to do a bio for her right now, but we'll get there. Missy Hyatt was born October 16th, 1963. She's 61 years old now. On this show, she was 27. The final pay-per-view we're going to see her booked for a match on is this one.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Real name, Melissa Ann Hyatt. Prior to WCW, she got her start as a manager in World Class in Dallas and also spent time in the UWF. She also had a tryout as an interviewer for WWF, but the segments were called Missy's Manor, and Vince McMahon didn't like how they turned out, so they never aired. and she never made it to WWF TV. Get this, she was actually once married to wrestler Eddie Gilbert.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess after
yeah.
Jason Hervey, which I just Googled it, Jason was 19 in 1991, and she was like, what,
27.
Yeah, so there was an age difference.
All right. Well, after WCW, she spent some time in ECW before working the independents. She later opened an adult website and today takes part in Civil War reenactments, apparently.
What? How do you go from an adult website to a Civil War reenactment? That's like, what?
She has a lot of interests.
Okay. Let's keep going.
Anyway, this match was originally supposed to be the Steiner brothers and Missy against Arn Anderson, Paulie Dangerously, and Barry Windham. However, because they had to scramble to put a main event together upon Flair's exit from the company, and because Scott Steiner had sustained a bicep injury, the match was switched to what we have here, which ain't much. So the Rick and Missy come down to ringside, and Rick gets in the ring, and then all of a sudden Dick Murdoch and Dick Slater run down and kidnap her, right?
Yeah.
And so the whole part of her being kidnapped and taken to the back and out of the match and not being able to compete was because the Maryland State Athletic Commission didn't allow intergender matches. So this is how they got around that.
Hold up, because I was thinking about like, so if WWE would have been there, like Sensational Sherry, would she have been allowed to like take those bumps and stuff? I don't know why I'm asking you, like, you know this.
I don't know.
That's crazy. I always thought Maryland was so progressive. But in the very beginning of this match, so I kept calling the Lex Luger match and Barry Windham the main event because this is not a main event, but this was officially the main event. Yeah. And in the very beginning of this match, JR says, "We don't have much time left for the main event." Like, wow.
For once, I'm very okay with that.
That's true. But random fact. Did you know that Paul Heyman is younger than Stone Cold Steve Austin? Like, that seems crazy back in 1991 and now. And I don't know why I put this random fact during this match. I think I meant to put it up further ahead. But isn't that weird?
That is weird to
Paul
think
Heyman,
about.
Like, even now, like, I mean, obviously you don't change your age, but he's younger than Stone Cold.
That is pretty crazy to think about.
Sorry, I randomly put this fact in this match. Anyway, why does Missy Hyatt not look like Missy Hyatt? It doesn't look like her.
You mean today or back then? Oh,
back then. Now she's in the Confederacy. But yeah, the dark hair, it threw me off. And oh gosh, Rick Steiner's face is so funny on his way out to the ring because he is so over it. Because normally, he's got that kind of goofy look on his face and he looks like in character and he's ready to be there. And I mean, he's just like rolling his eyes. He's like Gary Capetta announcing Oz. It was bad, man. But that kidnapping that you mentioned, it looked really painful for Missy. Like, those guys were really rough with her. And, she was thrashing and stuff, but I feel like they didn't do a great job of supporting her physically.
Yeah.
But it looks really painful. So much that a fan, did you see this? He takes a swing at one of the dicks.
I heard them say something about that and I missed it.
Yeah, so a fan like reaches out and he like takes a swing at I'm not sure which dick it was, one of the hardliners, but he took a swing back, and then the fan, like, security rushed over and like, kind of held off the fan, and it was to the point where I don't think it was planned or anything because they took the camera off really quick.
Right.
Had they left the camera there, I'd be like, oh, that was planned. But
sure.
Yeah,
no,
it was
that's crazy.
But man, Paul Heyman is the funniest seller I've ever seen. My gosh, he is so funny.
I love it. He's just like cowering in the corner, letting out these high-pitched yelps like, oh,
yes.
It's so good.
Oh,
so
God,
good.
So
but if you want a whole play-by-play for this match, here you go. Here's bonus content. Rick slams Arn, Rick slams Paul, Rick pins Paul.
Yeah.
Missy Hyatt and Rick Steiner win the match in 2 minutes and 9 seconds.
Yeah, this was the strangest choice for a main event of my life. Well, minus the whole Travis Scott thing. But
yeah,
what were they? And especially if your wrestler can't wrestle, why not scrap the match or cancel the whole show? Like nothing went right. Nothing went right. Okay, we'll talk about it in final thoughts in a second. Go ahead and finish this off.
Jim and Tony clearly know we're running out of time, and they do a quick recap of the night, plug the upcoming Halloween Havoc pay-per-view, and we are out of here. Give me those final thoughts.
They should have postponed, or they should have had better problem solving skills, something, because literally I think there was like one match on the show, like the Robert Gibson Ricky Morton one, that went well, looked like it belonged in a wrestling pay-per-view. Everything else seemed so strange and like something went wrong, and they tried to fix it last minute but it didn't work. This is no hate on any of the wrestlers, and also I thought the production value was pretty good on this. It's just like everything that could have gone wrong went wrong, and maybe they should have just cut their losses and then built up to a really great next show. I don't know, what do you think?
This show sucked. Like, it was so hard. Like, it's almost 3 hours long, and you feel every one of those minutes. Like, it's like they put all the focus on making it look good and took all the focus off of the content. And it was rough. I
thought it was an easier watch than like some of those old Survivor series and stuff.
Yeah.
Just because I was like, it was absurd how everything was so bad. Like, so it was almost entertaining looking back on it, 30 years later, 25 years later. So, I can't do math, apparently, because that's not 25 years later. I had a migraine earlier, okay? My brain's not working. But yeah, it was just, everything went wrong. Everything went wrong.
Well, hopefully they can pull the nose up and try again next time.
Pull the nose up?
Like on a plane. Pull the nose up.
Oh, I thought you meant like this. I always thought you pull up your bootstraps.
Okay,
I was like, what does this mean? Pulling your nose up? I look like Pee-wee. Man, well, before we move on from this show and talk about next week, can I get a few more?
Wrestle stats.
Wrestle stats, brother. All right, well, we have two people who will never be seen in a match on pay-per-view again after this show. One of them, it's a technicality, Missy Hyatt. She leaves us with a record of 1 win, 0 losses, 0 draws, technically, I guess. But the other one is Black Blood, a.k.a. Billy Jack Haynes. He leaves us with a record of 0-2-1. And then, of course, goes on to do a lot of things that got him a Dark Side of the Ring episode. Rematches went up on this show to 23 rematches out of 366. That's about 6%, a little bit over that. And title matches went down because there was only one on this show. 366 matches, 111 of them have been title matches. Here's the breakdown of those: 358 men's matches, 6 women's matches, and 2 mixed matches, including tonight's on a technicality. And if you want more stats like that, head on over to WrestleStats.com for current modern stats. And on the internet, Michelle has accounts too.
Yes. So I'm usually on the Wrestle Recap account. Sometimes you'll get Justin if you tweet him real early when I'm not awake. But yeah, if you want to talk about the show, you can tweet us, Facebook us, do whatever. And we're going to try to be a little more active on TikTok, try to get our name out there more. If you like the show, please tell people about us. We would really appreciate it. And you can also contact me on Twitter at Michelle Tater. If you just want to see some real opinionated wrestling opinions, that's where you go see me. I'm not mean or anything. And I talk about football, ghost hunters, stuff like that too. So yeah, reach out to us. We love to make new friends. So please do. But Justin, what are we doing for the next show?
For the next show, I'm so stupid excited about this one.
Woo, why?
WWF SummerSlam 91. Now, it was billed as the match made in heaven and the match made in hell. That was my Vince McMahon. Plus, a big star is supposedly fired right after his match. And it is the pay-per-view that got me hooked on wrestling for life.